Welcome to Holy Week at the Log Church. This is a time where we want to take a moment and a commercial break, if you will. Quit focusing on all that's going on in the media and all that we're experiencing with regard to the uncertainty and fear of our future, and focus on the one thing that we should get excited about every single day, and that is the resurrection of Jesus. You know, there's a lot said in the Bible about the resurrection of Jesus that we don't tend to focus on. There's some stories that don't get a lot of center attention because the actual resurrection of Jesus and the wonderful Easter story really is so consuming and so hopeful. But I want to share with you a character that most of us hardly ever talk about. And this guy is found in the Gospels a couple times, but I want to give you kind of a portrait of him. His name was Joseph of Arimathea. And Joseph of Arimathea was a wealthy person. He didn't have a perfect background. He made some mistakes with regard to his devotion to Jesus. But one of the things that's interesting is at the end of Jesus' life, after Jesus was crucified, we find Joseph of Arimathea putting himself in very awkward situations, specifically when he asks for Jesus' body from Pontius Pilate. Now, I want to give you a snapshot of what we're going to look at today as we examine the Gospel of Mark chapter 15, verse 46. It says in Mark chapter 15, verse 46, that Joseph bought a linen shroud, and he had taken him down, wrapped him up, talking about the body of Jesus, in the linen shroud, and laid him in a tomb that had been cut out of the rock. Now, I want to stop right there, and I want you to hear what's happening. Joseph went out and he bought this linen shroud for Jesus. Remember, Jesus was poor. Joseph of Arimathea was rich. How do I know that he was rich? Simple. It says that he laid him in a tomb that had been cut out of the rock. There were different types of graves back then, specifically two that I want to mention. There's the graves that you would think, the ones that are in the ground, that they'd dig a hole and they'd bury a person in the hole, very similar to what happens today. But then there were tombs that were cut into the side of rocks. They were caves. And these caves that were almost like a mausoleum were reserved for the wealthiest and most noble in the world. There is no question by many scholars that Joseph of Arimathea gave Jesus his own burial plot that he had been saving for himself. He sacrificed that for Jesus, what he had been preparing for himself. And what's amazing about this story is he's remembered throughout history for doing this thing. I want to let you know that some of you right now, you're in a very uncomfortable situation. The idea of reaching out, thinking about somebody else aside from the people in your immediate family, the idea of caring about the spiritual needs of people like your neighbors or the people that you're working with in the healthcare industry or the people that are serving you when you're getting takeout, you're not thinking about them because you're thinking about yourself. I want to challenge you with something. I want to challenge you to jump on the road to resurrection with me, and I want you to start thinking in terms of sacrifice. What can I give up right now in this season that's going to bless? What can I do to show that my devotion is to Jesus and my hope is not in my circumstances getting better? Now, I'm not saying that you give up your pre-arranged funeral tomb. I'm not saying that you give up your mausoleum. But what I want you to think about is, how can you reach people? How can you serve people? How can you care for people and show them the message of the resurrection if you're focused only on yourself? The road to resurrection is the road that we're on, and it's filled with sacrifice. I want to challenge you to think about what you can do for someone today. In fact, I have an idea. You should take a moment, open up your Facebook right now, look at your contacts on your cell phone, and I want you to think about someone that you know might be kind of not sure about their own relationship to Jesus. And this situation with the virus and all of the horrible things that people are dealing with alongside the virus is affecting them more than it's affecting others. I want you to take a moment specifically and invite them to go to one of our online Good Friday worship services. I think the greatest thing that you could do right now for people when you can't reach out and help them is say, look, we're all in the same place together. Why don't we join in a church community, and why don't we hear the message of hope? That is the message of the gospel. If you know someone, we want you to invite them to that Good Friday church experience. Remember, it begins at 11 a.m. on Good Friday, and it goes all day long, every hour, okay? We're going all the way into the evening. But we want to encourage you to think about who could you bring to that? Who would benefit most in your life right now from hearing the message of what Jesus did to die for their sins? Because this is the road to resurrection. Resurrection is our focus. The road to resurrection is filled with sacrifice, but it's still the road to resurrection, and that's where it leads us.